and welcome to the PALS podcast mini-series where we chat to the student services on offer at QMU. I'm Megan and a fourth year business management student and PALS leader, and today I'm here with Bill from Student Funding. Hi Bill.
Hi Megan.
So today we will be chatting about how students can get in touch, the funding that's available to students, and Bill also has some top tips for managing your money. So let's start off with explaining sort of how do students get in touch with the student funding service, Bill?
The best way to get in touch is by emailing me, and the student funding email address is just a straightforward student funding, all one word, at qmu.ac.uk. And that's the best way for students to get in touch. I am a one-person service, so I can't necessarily reply immediately, but we do get back. I do normally get back within a couple of days if possible.
So what are some of the things that students can come and speak to you about?
Okay, well, there's lots of different things that I cover. I cover information and guidance on the funding that's available to students before they actually come to university. I can also advise, whilst I'm not an expert on benefits, students are entitled to apply for benefits whilst they're studying, and that mainly is mature students with children, perhaps. Then I can point them in the right direction when it comes to information about benefits. I can also advise on what student funding is available, and if students are having difficulties with their funding applications, I can sometimes help with that as well. In addition to that, I manage the discretionary funds that the university receives from the Scottish Government via SAS. And the university's international hardship funds. So the funds that are available are the discretionary fund. This used to be called the hardship fund, and that's for students that find themselves in financial difficulty when they're studying. There is also a nursing discretionary fund, which is ring-fenced just for student nurses. There is an international hardship fund for all students from outside the UK. If they run into financial difficulties, they can apply to that. And we also have something called the childcare fund, and that is to help with registered childcare costs, dependent on household income, for students that have young children when they're studying with us.
Right, so for applications for this funding, when is the best time that you would advise that students could apply for this?
I would always say that if students are applying to the childcare fund, they should apply as early in the academic year as possible, or before the start of the academic year. We can usually start looking at childcare fund applications in August, although we can't release any money for childcare until students have actually started their course. When it comes to the other funds, students should apply as and when they need to. We don't expect, we do occasionally get some speculative applications from students at the start of the academic year, which are very much along the lines of perhaps I'm a student and I'm skimped. And it's like, well, you're sort of in the same position as every other student, but if students continue with financial difficulties during the academic year, or they come across something which they haven't expected in any way, then we're here to help. So it's really as and when you need to apply. What we wouldn't want to happen is for a student to be in dire circumstances and waiting till the very last minute, thinking that they're going to get an immediate response from us. We can't transfer money the same day. We can't normally applications take a couple of weeks to process. So we'd much rather students were thinking about where they are at the moment and where they'll be in a few weeks' time, and make an application so that they're not in dire straits.
And struggling, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've just mentioned that 2 weeks there. Is that sort of when students hear back from their application, or does it sort of differ?
At the moment, what we're looking at the moment is 2 to 3 weeks for a decision and any payment, any successful payment being made. It is a busy time of the year. We do expect, because of COVID, we do expect an increased number of applications. and we try and process them as quickly as possible. But yes, it's normally 2 to 3 weeks from the submission of an application to receiving any payment.
Yeah, so that's something that I think is quite important to keep in mind if you're considering making an application, that it does take this amount of time for you to hear back.
Yeah, I mean, we're partly constrained. I mean, very occasionally we can make an emergency payment, but even emergency payments take a minimum of like 4 to 5 days. So we can't just waive it. We have seen people in the past turn up at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon saying, I have no money. I can't afford to eat this weekend. And that's difficult position to be in, but also difficult decision to deal with, because we can't have a payment made to them. I mean, we do have some emergency backup for students in that situation, in the form of being able to give people a Tesco voucher or something like that for a real emergency. But it's not something we can't hand over cash. With especially with COVID now, the finance office doesn't really deal in cash as such. So I can't even say to them, I've got an emergency here, I need £50. So it's we're quite, I'm not saying limited, but there's only so much that we can support students with at very short notice.
Yeah, so definitely keeping that in mind as well. And also just sort of building on that point about managing money. For new students this year, it's maybe, the first time that they've left home and had to manage their money independently. So maybe if you would like to share your tips and your take on budgeting.
I think budgeting is quite an interesting issue. A lot of students will start university having, done some maybe some financial capability work at school, or already have had a part-time job and are maybe quite good at budgeting the money they have. Obviously, university presents different challenges in the fact that you're having to pay for your accommodation, which you may well have not had to contribute when you were living at home, and there are sort of various websites that can help. I mean, for example, there's the Money Saving Expert Budget Planner. There's tips and advice from the National Union of Students, and the Money Advice Service is a very good budget planner with budgeting tools on that site as well. What we're hoping for in the coming years to get the Money Advice Service involved in the fact that they're starting to roll out Money Advice Scotland are starting to roll out some new information sessions and everything which can be accessed by students, and we hope to advertise that over the coming year.
Yeah, so that's maybe something that students aren't aware of, that there's actually resources out there to help them with budgeting and managing their money.
Yeah, and there's links to all of these things on my section of the university website. So if you go to the university website and you click into student services, and then you can look up the student funding service, my service, and there's various tabs that link you into budgeting and give you tips for saving money.
Yeah, so
like tips for saving money would maybe come into things like, try and be smart when you're shopping for food. Don't be tempted to have too many takeaways. I mean, for example, we've already talked about the funds. I see lots of different reasons for students applying, but sometimes students are short of funds purely because, like for a very basic example, they're eating far too many takeaways, and it's costing a lot of money. So there's tips for various things.
Yeah,
I think the main thing to emphasize is it's worth looking at these things. I mean, we have tried to run in-person budgeting workshops, etc., in the past, and we have very low take-up of those, unfortunately. So that's why we're sort of trying to link students into various websites, and and obviously, what I would say is when students are perhaps thinking about making an application to the discretionary fund, if they've got any hesitancy about whether they're eligible, they can contact me on the student funding email. And let's put it this way, I've been doing this job for a while now. and I see something new that I've never thought about as a reason for applying every year, and no reason is ignored. We may sort of, the only reason that students are perhaps turned down for applications to the funds is actually because they're not in any financial hardship whatsoever. But normally, the majority of applications, students receive something, and don't be worried about your reason for applying. There are always good reasons for applying for help and support.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to emphasise to wrap up there, Bill. So thank you so much for coming on today and chatting to us.
Thank you.
So remember, if you would like to book an appointment, to email Bill at studentfunding, that's all one word, studentfunding@qmu.ac.uk. And you can also follow PALS QMU on Instagram to listen to our other podcasts in our Student Services mini-series, where we chat to disability, wellbeing, counselling, the Effective Learning Service and the Careers and Employability Service.